Hello and welcome to Idea Shots, the podcast where we'll be opening up about ideas for creators and marketers and drinking a few shots while we do it. I'm Tom Cox and I'm here with Nigel Stevens. So, Nigel is the CEO and growth lead at Organic Growth Marketing, so OGM, as you can see behind him. And yeah, so you've been working with top startups. I've seen like Profitwell and Intercom and Hotjar and so on. And yeah, making organic growth machines, which is really amazing. And yeah, the other thing I remember is that you create a really mean freestyle tortilla the last time I was here. Very interesting.
I can neither confirm nor deny that.
So yeah, it's great to see you again, and yeah, thanks for having this conversation.
Yeah, likewise, thanks for having me.
Cool, and we're going to be talking a little bit about how you started organic growth marketing, and I guess this is for anyone that's interested in, first of all, how a marketing agency works, or if you're interested in doing your own thing in marketing yourself, so an agency or maybe freelancing. But before we do that, we're going to be trying this. So it says it's botanical alchemy. It's from Free Spirit. Yeah, I'm not sure what that means, but we're about to find out.
Oh boy.
Yeah, so it's non-alcoholic, but I'm not sure what it's made of apart from lion's mane mushroom and some adaptogens, berries, and all sorts of stuff.
Isn't lion's mane? I feel like I have friends who recommended that. I don't remember what the benefit is supposed to be, but that's interesting.
Yeah, I think lion's mane they say is like for to help with concentration.
Oh right, yeah. It's like nature's Adderall.
Yeah, yeah, you might call it that. I hope, we don't get exactly the same effect, but after a few of these, we're
gonna throw this back, or
yeah, this is how it's done.
All right, you tell me.
Yeah,
cheers.
Cheers.
I mean, it's pretty mild.
Yeah.
I would say. Not much of a kick.
No, not much of a kick, but we'll see how it works and if we feel lighter on our feet, let's say.
That lion's mane focus kicks in.
Yeah, exactly. We'll be in the flow. So yeah, I'm really interested in. I'm actually gonna hold this up here. I'm really interested in the thought of callings, like something that's calling you to do something. And you told me literally minutes ago that you almost started your agency by accident. So how did that come about? How was it an accident? Talk me through like where you were in your life at the time that it happened.
For sure, yeah. I mean, yeah, it was a total accident. It was unplanned. And it's funny because I think in general, people like narratives, and narratives tend to start with intentions. People are like, what was it that made you want to start this? The original impetus was I had a great job in San Francisco working for a great startup, and it had everything, catered lunch. People would come in and give you massages, just typical kind of San Francisco setup. And deep down, I was like, and I had a really good team, I had a good job and everything. I thought, man, like something is still missing, and I don't know what it is, but I just had this really deep, innate feeling like I had to shake stuff up. So I packed up my cat, who you just met a few minutes ago, fit all my stuff into a couple bags, and went to Chiang Mai, Thailand. And because I'd visited there before, and the impetus or idea behind that was I just want to wake up and sort of, like, I'd saved up enough money. I'm in Thailand, where like at least for a little bit I don't have to worry about stuff. So I want to wake up and know, okay, if I don't have a job, what do I feel like doing? What happens? And it was sort of in the back of my mind, so going to northern Thailand, do I just go be like a hippie in the northern Thai jungle, whatever it is? Mm-hmm. And it turned out my sort of my exploits into being a hippie in northern Thailand meant I got freelance SEO opportunities from the States many hours away. So one thing came in, I was like, oh, this is really fun. And as much as I liked my job, I'd sort of grown a bit just disenchanted with working at a company, and I can't explain it, but it just wasn't working for me. But then it was this weird kind of paradoxical thing, when I knew that I didn't have to do it, at least for a little bit, because I had a little bit of runway, I was like, oh, this is fun. And it sort of made me like rediscover the things that it made me super interested in SEO, content marketing, and then, sort of one freelance thing led to another, and then sort of I started going down the road of making it a company, and we can get into that. But that's like the sort of the genesis story, if you will.
Yeah, that's really direct route from hippie in Thailand to SEO marketing agency.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, really common story, that one. Yeah, so what do you think in terms of characteristics of someone that is going to run a marketing agency? Like what do they need to be personally to try and make it work and maybe start their own thing from someone that's obviously doing it?
Well, an interesting part of that question is, so another aspect of before I had gone and done this, I wasn't super senior. Like I just sort of like had jobs, and I definitely, looking back, I had a lot of imposter syndrome. And then when I went to do it on my own, I just took that imposter syndrome with me, and I kind of just fought through it. And anyway, I say that because if you're sort of listening and trying to think through, okay, like, do I have the characteristics or not? I don't know if you know what those are, like whether you have them until you're kind of put into this situation. But I'd say the main thing is just being able to go with the flow. And what's the famous Elon Musk saying that like entrepreneurism is like chewing broken glass or something like that. I mean, I think I've generally speaking had like a pretty okay path, but I had this moment when I was sort of like, okay, I'm freelancing. I'm relatively open. If I just want to screw off in a few months and do something, I have the ability to do that. But then when I went down the road of like building a company, like it's not just about me anymore. I'm basically like providing opportunities for people, and these are all super well qualified people, and like they'll be fine. But it's still like during the time that we're working together, they're depending on the business. So I think it's about whether you're willing to take that on and sort of know that you don't know anything going in, and just roll with the punches, and then try to set yourself up so that you're going to make a bunch of mistakes. You're going to learn some tough lessons, but try to put yourself in a position where you can do all those things and still kind of be okay and sustain yourself and not want to jump off a bridge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really interesting. The the point of not jumping off a bridge, kind of important.
Yeah, that's a good step.
Be steady on your feet is probably quite important. And we could probably use another shot of this to be steady on the feet, I suppose. So
I think I feel a little something
fluid.
Yeah, I'm not gonna go ahead and say it's too strong.
Mm-hmm. Cheers.
Salud.
I really don't know how to call that flavor. It's kind of bitter.
Well, not berries. Too bitter. Yeah, I do get a bit of berries in it. Yeah, I mean I get a bit of like apple juice, a little bit of that flavor in there.
Yeah, hopefully there's more than just apple juice, and otherwise, money wasted.
You've been hustled,
yeah,
my friend.
Big time. Okay, yeah. So let's imagine that today or tomorrow I said to you, so Nigel, I'm really thinking about starting my own agency. And that would be maybe a bit of a crazy move, but it can happen quite suddenly, as you've kind of suggested. What would be your first advice you would give to me? What would be the first things that you would tell me when I'm literally on the first few weeks of beginning that journey?
I think the first thing I would say, I would ask you a question, which is, where are you going to get leads? Where are you going to get business? And for me, that came from my immediate network. And again, going back to the fact, like, I didn't plan this at all, and it just sort of happened. I had just, I think, done like really good work at the last job that I had. And then, there's a bunch of really cool, smart people there that go to other companies. And that there was sort of my initial, again, like there was no intention here, but that's just sort of how it happened. Like, oh, I'm in a thing, can you help out? And oh, I know someone, can you help out? And I also had someone that I worked with at the beginning who he had gotten consulting opportunities and then didn't have as much time to work on it. So he brought me in and I was like, yeah, this is great. And I sort of got to learn from him a little bit. But again, that question is like, where are you going to get business? Because at the end of the day, like if you don't have a 9-to-5 job, that business needs to come from somewhere. And that doesn't mean you need I really think there's all people say things like you have to be active on LinkedIn and do this and that. Like,
Right.
I think those are all things that can work. I think it's BS whenever anybody tells you that you have to do something. But the only thing you do have to do is you have to get business from somewhere. So where are you going to do that? Who in your network, if there's a, like the 80-20 rule, who are like the 1, 2, 3 people who people go to them for advice and they can refer you out. And if you have some other like, way to get business, great. But what is that?
Mm-hmm. Okay. So obviously before branding or before your web page, I mean, this would be the first step. Is like, okay, I have this thing that I want to do, and I know what I want to specialize in. But where would I find the right people and my customers, essentially, right?
Yeah, exactly. And again, something else I've heard other people who were sort of coming up and say, "Oh yeah, like I'd love to really do the business, but I got to work on my website." And I'm always pretty skeptical of that because it's definitely true. I mean, there's a lot of different business models. And one of my main things would be like I have my own journey and stuff that worked for me, and other people have taken totally different models and absolutely crushed it. So there's different things. But if you're getting really good referrals, you don't need a website. You just have to talk to people. And then that's a whole other thing of like, how do you decide what your services are? What's your product? How do you frame it? How do you convince people that you can do it? That's a whole separate thing. But the website is just a tool for that. So, and I've noticed a lot of people kind of use their website as sort of like a crutch of like why they can't get started. And again, for some things, it's certainly helpful. But I closed some like pretty cool deals early on before I had any type of website. And that convinced me that you don't need that. It's not a requirement. But it can, it can give you some assists.
Mm-hmm. So your reputation comes before everything else, essentially.
Yeah, because if someone's coming in cold to a website, then it's on the website to convince them. And I've had the stray person who came in from my website and it never went anywhere because, and I have something to compare it to, which is all the people who came in and they said, hey, this person, the CEO of this company or the CMO of that company, they said you're legit. And already you've surpassed like 5 hurdles because they sort of come in as believers and it's on you sort of have to, like show them and flesh it out and sort of bring that initial idea of positivity to life. But I've had these cold conversations where like, so like, why should I talk to you? I'm like, I don't know. You don't have to. Like, why are we even talking here? Like,
it's up to you.
Yeah.
And what would you say? I mean, maybe you've hinted at it already a couple of times, but what would you avoid? So what should if I was starting tomorrow, what should I avoid at the beginning?
Just overthinking it. Like some people, like I need a business plan and a this and a that. At the beginning, it's just make a hypothesis. Like, what do you have to offer? Why do you think it is? What's like your sort of, the few pieces of value on what you're basically selling someone on? And then throw stuff against the wall and see what sticks. Like, for me, I sort of at first, and I think I've talked to a lot of other people in this position, and basically everybody does this from what I can tell. At first they're like, oh man, someone wants to pay me money for stuff, and you base it, you're anchored in like whatever your salary was, so it's whatever percent of my salary to just do this part-time. That's amazing. Oh yeah, I can do that. And then you actually find out through, again, like learning some tough lessons that, oh, like this doesn't make sense, that's a pain. But you just have to do it. So again, like going back to the thing about the website where it's like, oh, I need to get my website right. It's same thing with sort of like product services. Make a hypothesis and then just the objective is to charge enough that if you have to learn a tough lesson, you're at least getting paid decently to learn that lesson. You're like, okay, this was tough. Take it on the chin. Go on to the next one and then apply that moving forward.
Okay, amazing. And okay, so great advice. And what about the next stage? I guess we're moving on quite well. I guess in your case that you said that you start with the reputation and the people that you want to contact and the people who you're getting the work from. What about getting buy-in for people that you perhaps don't have this contact with? Or is it the fact that via your reputation, you've already built that relationship with potential clients? But how do you get buy-in from clients that you're looking to build relationships
Maybe
with?
If I had to reframe that question, it would restate it would be like, how do you overcome objections? Which I guess like the thing is like, this is essentially then it's kind of like a sales conversation. And the kind of funny thing is like, I have 0 training in sales. I haven't even really read books or anything. I just sort of see stray posts and this and that, and which means like on the one hand, there's probably some things that I'm doing very poorly that like an expert would look at it and be like, oh my, look at all the stuff he's leaving on the
practice.
table. Yeah, well, I talked to a friend of mine just about business stuff, and I just threw out some stuff, and he's a sales guy, and he said, just so you know, like, this breaks my heart to know that like you're wasting all this. Like, yeah, whatever, I don't know. But on the other hand, it's that I think it's kind of worked to my advantage where I'm a subject matter expert masquerading as a salesperson rather than a salesperson masquerading as a subject matter expert. And I think the only thing with the objections is it's like pattern recognition over time where you talk to people and you learn what are the objections, and some of it is uncertainty about what will the results be, and then you just sort of learn, okay, how do you be honest about that? But like, look, the stuff I do is SEO and content marketing, so this is all uncertainty. Anyone who tells you it's certain is wrong, but here's a rough model. Here's the inputs for that. These inputs are reasonable for me. Are they reasonable for you? If yes, then that's a place to start. And then the other thing when it comes to just like believing that you do good work is they can talk to people. Like I've had multiple potential clients who ended up becoming clients do reference checks. Either I'm trying to remember the term for it. There's like where you tell them talk to this person, but then there's also a blind reference check where like you said you worked with this company. Well, I talked to their CEO and yeah, he said you're legit. So and that's not really anything you necessarily do. That's just some people you talk to them and they have a strong enough endorsement going in that they're good, and then others just sort of tend to be a little bit trigger shy. And to be honest, I don't blame them, especially when it's like a bigger sticker price and a bigger commitment, and they just want to be sure that they're not going to get screwed over. And some people just need more assurances.
So what I'm picking out from there as well is that you really focused on where you're specializing and what you're specializing in. That's your selling point, I guess, is that, I know where my strengths are and I know where they're not, right?
Yeah, and I mean, again, this is something that, you always hear this advice, like, you have to specialize, or you have to do this, or you have to do that. Like, there's people who are killing it doing everything. There's, like, models where they do a bunch of different things. There's models where they're super hyper-focused. And it also comes down to sort of what you want to do or what you find interesting. Like, I found that even in the work we do, the work we do isn't that easy, and it takes a lot of focus just to be good at that. So that's my own hypothesis, but it's also kind of like, I guess, a form of laziness where I'm like, I don't want to figure out something else. Like, this stuff I know, and it has its own challenges, and even dealing with those challenges I feel comfortable with, but that's sort of enough on my plate where I don't want to take on other things. So people ask, do you do PPC or this or that? And the answer is pretty much always like, nope, no. This is what we do. I'm happy to refer you for that. And I think it sort of ends up being perceived as a selling point, but it's not like I'm turning down the opportunity to try other things for that reason. I just don't want to do it because I have enough respect for how hard it is to do this one thing. But others are able to branch out and do well. So
that's really interesting that I'm hearing as well about you're referring people for different skills. Is it important then to build that kind of community within, agencies, freelancers, people that work across different disciplines?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where it's not required. Again, like you can sort of succeed with a variety of different models, but a lot of people, that's like their whole thing is like, I have a few other complementary companies who we all do different things, and then we all share stuff when it comes our way. I know multiple people who are like making great livings just on that. To me, it's also like kind of I don't know, just sort of my underlying philosophy, which is I like talking to people and I like sort of making connections, and it's not like I'm doing it totally selflessly. It's just that I don't expect anything short term, and just that stuff has worked out for me where just, you make a referral here, a referral there. Someone then connects you with someone else, and that person connects you with someone else. So it's sort of the thing of just, put out good energy and like sort of throw out some assists and good things happen. And I found it generally comes back, even if it's like 6 degrees of separation.
And I'm feeling a full circle here as well with the hippie Thailand vibes. Put out that good energy and you'll come back with vibes.
Yeah, there's a lot of that in northern Thailand. I can assure you.
Nice. Okay. And I think I'm not sure if this is giving me good vibe. Like, it's doing something. Yeah. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely like I do feel a bit more relaxed, I would say.
definitely.
I'm not exactly overwhelmed. I'm probably a lot less entertaining than maybe some other conversations, and you get 3 or 4 deep of more potent substance. But
let's try a third one and let's see
Alright.
what it takes us. All right, cheers.
no.
Apple juice. Yeah, and so okay, we've covered really several bases here, and I wanted to cover the base of when you're first starting with a company. So I was going through your website as you do before you do a podcast. You do a bit of research, and I saw Louis Grenier, who's runs the Everyone
Good
Hates.
pronunciation.
Thank you very much. He runs the Everyone Hates Marketers podcast, which I love. Yeah, really, really amazing podcast and material. And he said that you 12x the traffic. I think it was a Hotjar at the time within 12 months, which is incredible. And, you know, I wanted to kind of maybe not go into that specific scenario, but how when you first start working with a company, do you start picking out the right opportunities for growth?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm gonna avoid the path of getting into like nitty gritty
Sure.
SEO type stuff, and I think there's a couple even symbolic lessons to learn. One is that it's really helpful to get in the weeds right away, because even let's say like you get brought in that case, I actually it was like Louis that had like brought me in, but sometimes you get brought in by some person, and then you're working with someone else, and no matter how good people are feeling, trust needs to be built. And it's the same thing within a team. You know, like when you start working with someone, it's a very different relationship than 1-2 years in when you have a lot of trust built up. So just like spending the time to get into the weeds, and then also being like really committed to doing things in a way that makes sense. I think a lot, like one mistake that maybe some sort of agencies, third parties make is they're so set in the way that they do things that they try to make a client conform to that. But in reality, it's like they already have like too much stuff to do, and then they got to figure out your tool and you're this and you're that. Like, ain't nobody got time for that, as was once famously said. So sort of figuring out how to adapt yourself in early and be like, okay, how are they thinking about things? So with SEO and content, there's a lot of preconceived notions and a lot of different mental models. So just taking the time to dive deep and see how are people thinking about it. And you don't want to talk to them in a way that you talk to everybody else. You want to think about, or at least this is what I've found, how are they thinking about it, and how can you explain the way that we want to think about it in a way that kind of conforms to their mental model, and then any way you want to pivot it, we can. So like a simple example, with SEO, a lot of people think about it like, okay, we need to think about keywords. What is this keyword and that keyword? And one of the big things we often do early on is say like, look, keywords are an important thing to think about. That's almost more of an us thing. Like because when people think about keywords, they don't think in human terms often. They're like, like we need to put the keyword here and there, and what about this keyword and that keyword? And thinking, I don't know, throw all that out for a second. What are the things we want to accomplish? What are the topics that roll up into that? And then we can start getting into some of the nitty gritty. So as far as when you first start, just understanding how they think about it, and then framing the suggestions and strategies and everything in a way that sort of makes sense to them. That wasn't really your question, but that's sort of where it
No, definitely. It's, and what I'm kind of reading into it a little bit, and tell me if I'm on the right path, is around just really laser focusing on their objectives and what could be needed to get there, rather than, like you said, going tactical straight away with like, we have to load this page with keywords. It's like, well, actually, do you want to achieve something wider than that?
Yeah. And I'd say it's not even just about the objectives. It's also just about like understanding how they think about things. And because the thing is, like ultimately, and like really like getting people on board, as you've like probably experienced or heard, it doesn't matter how good your ideas are if you can't get people to buy into them. So you need to frame things in a way that gets people excited, and to get them excited, you have to understand where they're coming from. So even just being able to understand, like you said, hear their objectives. How do we steer the ship in a direction that always highlights how we're working across those objectives in a way that they can understand?
Okay, great. That's amazing. I feel something from something. This. But let's we're gonna do another one, and this will be the final one because we have I'm one person doing this podcast. I have a segment on this show called Snapshots.
Oh boy.
Which is essentially just your snap judgment. I'm just gonna mention something, and I need to get your snap judgment. It can be, just a word, or it can get a bit longer if you feel up to it. So, first of all,
La última.
la última. Okay, so first one, where do you look for inspiration?
Not business stuff. I've gotten to the point where I hate business books. Like, I don't read them. I look for anything else, like whether it's history or something else, and I often pick things up that I can apply.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, just to dig into that a bit deeper, like how. So you're applying. You look to apply what from that, or is it a little bit of a? I'm doing it to escape the business world a little bit.
So it's sort of like. It's a bit of everything. It's first of all, it's like I just, I've read a bunch of business books and listened to podcasts, and one day I woke up and I was like, I just spend too much time thinking about this shit. Like, I'm already working probably like arguably like more than I should be for a healthy person, whatever. And then on top of that, in my spare time, I'm gonna be like, I need to learn it. Like, I'm spending a bunch of time on this. Like, I don't want to die and then be like, all I did was think about SEO and growing a business. Like, that's pretty lame. We live in a crazy, complex, fascinating world. And then I found that just one thing that I'm interested in is reading about companies and reading about interesting people. And through that, you take little tidbits that are really applicable, even more so than a business book that's trying to hit you over the head with some concept. I guess I didn't mean to go on a rant about business books, but it is how I've been feeling recently.
Please do it. Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking a bit like how you would apply, I don't know, the art of war to business. I mean, maybe, yeah. Maybe
Let me give you an example.
stretching.
I read a book about, have you heard of a talent agency called CAA? Something Creative Artists Agency, I think. And it turned into like one of the biggest agencies in Hollywood. This like, and I guess like the fact that it's an agency like is some parallel. And I read this book years ago, but even just the way that the head of the agency thought about, he kind of turned Hollywood on its head. The way he thought about client relationships. Like, I was not reading this book to learn how to do this stuff, but from a Hollywood agency, I found it really interesting just to understand how the world works. But then also, I did take a couple of those things away.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, I'm gonna check out that book. Let's see perhaps where it takes me. Okay, summarize how you feel about Google algorithm updates.
Overrated.
Okay.
It's because in that they can be impactful, but people, when I talk to people about SEO, they often think that like that's what SEO is, like, oh, these updates, they change everything. Like, it can change things, and especially like we've all worked with companies where like they get dinged or something, but in the grand scheme of things, it's like you go up some, you go down some. But if you're kind of doing like not sketchy things and you're applying, there's tactics that change with sort of different algo updates and as Google test stuff and this and that. And then there's principles that remain true. Like, focus on user intent, don't do sketchy stuff. And then you can be doing stuff that like maybe brings you up or down. But in the grand scheme of things, I don't think it's as impactful as people sort of say that is SEO. It's like, this algorithm update will give you everything or take everything away. And that's more of an extreme case.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Okay, so yeah, focus on the fundamentals.
Yeah.
And get them right.
Yeah.
Cool. And complete the sentence. LinkedIn is.
Ugh. That's my answer.
that was the answer.
Yeah, I stand by that answer, and I'm on it. But I just oh my, that could be a whole nother topic.
Damn. Okay. LinkedIn. Hope you enjoyed that one. Initiatives at companies, fast growing startups that should be killed.
Lots of meetings. I don't know if that's an initiative,
right.
But just too many meetings. Meetings where you show up and everyone's unprepared. This is like, I would say, a bit of an extreme example, but it's also not, where you show up and everyone's like, what's the point of the meeting? Most meetings can be done asynchronously, or if everyone goes in prepared, you can sort of bang through stuff. But some people, their whole their day is just meetings, and then they either don't get work done or they have to do it in their spare time, and then the meetings create more meetings. It's like the coronavirus. It just spawns.
It's it's definitely, for me, it's a real pet peeve, and yeah, I just feel bad trying to book time in someone's calendar and just seeing me. I'm like, oh, God help that person.
I heard at the last job I had, I heard someone say something to the effect of, it's weird that a lot of companies make you get clearance to spend like $200. You need to get someone's permission, but you could get $5,000 of people's time just without even thinking about it. Wow. So I think it's a cultural thing where you have to be very intentional about, we do not want to be consumed by meetings. We want to be purposeful with them, and we want to be prepared for them, but we don't want to just do it for the sake of doing it and assume that we need to do it.
That's so amazing. I'm going to use that next time. I'm going to be at in this meeting. We've all just cost ourselves.
Well, have fun with that.
Yeah.
Let me know how that goes.
Yeah. Well, shout out to Agendas and Loom and Slack, I guess.
Loom.
And yeah, finally, before we close out, one word to describe this podcast.
Groovy.
Nice.
It's usually maybe it's this lion's mane little. It's not a buzz, but it's a vibe.
I'm very chilled now.
It's a vibe. Yeah. I'm more relaxed than when I started.
Yeah. Sure. It's pretty good stuff. Shout out to Three Spirit. Three Spirit.
Yeah, get that endorsement deal.
Yeah, come on. All right, so Nigel, thanks so much for inviting me to your home and your studio, and doing this awesome groovy podcast with me and talking about hippie stuff.
Keyword groovy.
Yeah, keyword.
Stuff that keyword every
day. Keywords and grooviness, and how to build your own marketing agency. So Thank you very much.
Thanks, Tom. This was fun.
And so anyone that's listening, go check out the links in the description. That's where you can subscribe, and hit me up on LinkedIn and tell me what you thought on the LinkedIn, our favorite social network.
Everyone's favorite.
And stay curious.